Well, hello everyone. Can everyone hear me? I assume so. For those of you who know me, you know that I have no qualms about talking about difficult subjects. Today, however, I get to talk about something that even I avoid. I'm not going to talk about religion or finances or death or loss or grief. Those are my normal go-to subjects. Today, I get to talk about politics. Why don't we talk about politics in general? Because it's divisive. Because you're not going to convince anyone of anything, and because no one really listens to what you have to say. You ever noticed or observed two people who do talk about politics? And they start off all nice and quiet and all civil, but slowly and surely they get louder and louder and louder and louder until like they're eventually just shouting at each other and everyone's shouting and no one's listening. What if I told you there might be a better way to go about doing that? Over Christmas, I got the chance to go back home to Tennessee. And one of the things I was most looking forward to in Tennessee was going to see my grandmother. And she's the sweetest, most kindest woman I know. And she lives up in this rural part of northwest Georgia called Cleveland, Georgia. And there's a whole lot that I was looking forward to. And one of the things is like we just sit around and talk. And I was there for 3 or 4 days. And of course, there was these times where, we have these natural lulls in the conversation. And one thing you need to know about my grandmother is that she's really conservative. And she's a diehard Donald Trump supporter. And one of the things she said after one of these long pauses was, Kevin, or it was actually like, Kevin, I don't understand. I'm going to talk normal. I don't understand why everyone's so hard on him, right? Like I don't understand where everyone is like getting all this negativity. Why don't they just let him do his job? And of course, like how many of you have about 10 things you could say right off the top of your head about that? Not seeing any hands, I could see you. Well, not this guy. Like, what I like to do is listen. I like to listen and listen and listen, and then like maybe say something every once in a while. And throughout the whole time that I was there, and I went to church with her and everything, and one thing that I noticed was every single thing that was around her was saying the same thing. She gets her news from a newspaper, and it's a conservative newspaper, and of course it's saying one thing. Everything that's on the radio up in northwest Georgia is saying the same thing. Anything on the TV, on the news is saying the same thing. Every person around her is saying the same thing. And she lives in this gigantic bubble. This nice fortified little bubble that's everyone is saying and preaching and being and acting the exact same way. How much good would it have done me to try to dissuade or convince her off of that position that she held? Or try to say all the bad and negative things that I thought immediately that I could criticize someone for? What was interesting is that when I came back to San Francisco, I noticed that, we're in the same kind of situation here. Where everything you see is saying one thing. Everything that you read is saying one thing. Every person that you meet and talk to are saying the same thing. And so I went from one bubble over in rural Georgia to this nice urban bubble out in San Francisco. And it's pretty much like we're all saying the same thing. And like what would happen if someone here in San Francisco who was a diehard Trump supporter were to come on, sit on a soapbox and start preaching to people? How much persuasion would they have? Like raise your hand if you have ever been politically shifted by something you read on social media. No. Like no one has. No, your mind is never going to be changed by someone shouting at you. And I'm well aware of everyone's, or most of y'all's viewpoints here. And as an exercise, and something that I like to talk about a lot, is try to find the good in everything. So think about your opponent, right? Think about that person in the White House or in Congress that you want to vote out, and see if you can come up with 3 good things about them. Like, I'm curious to see if you could. And I want you to do this as part of my feedback too, in this minute of silence coming up. Try to write down 3 things positive about the person that you want out of the office. And I can start. I can give you 3 things about Adolf Hitler that were good. He did animal protection laws. He was a avid anti-smoking advocate. He invented blow-up dolls. And the best thing that Adolf Hitler did was he killed Adolf Hitler. And that's a pretty good thing, right? How many people get that? I think that we can all see that these next few months are going to be just a total shit show in this whole election, and everything that's going on is going to be very bad for a lot of media, and social media is going to go crazy, and everyone's going to be saying all kinds of things and just shouting at each other. But it doesn't have to be that way for us. We can be passionate about our beliefs and about what we stand for, and compassionate. If we listen first, if we take the time to listen to what somebody is saying and figure out, hey, why do they think the way they do? What's around them? What's influencing them? How can I listen to what they have to say? Because unless we think that we've been heard, we are never going to change our positions. We're never going to listen to someone else until we think that we've been heard. We're not going to convince anybody of anything by shouting and tweeting and posting. And the only thing that that's going to do is help them fortify their position in that nice bubble of theirs. Because if everyone is shouting, no one is listening. Right? If everyone is shouting, no one is listening. Let's take just a few moments in this next few months to listen before we respond.